Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. This is Invest 2140. My name's Adam, and this week we're going to take a look at the market review. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hit the like, subscribes, and notifications if you don't mind. The more we grow this channel, the more we can do for you guys. What we'll look at is the market fear and greed index. We have been hammered today over the last 24 hours with the Trump tariff turmoils, and it's ticked down. I did actually put this slide together yesterday, well, most of these slides yesterday, and it was at 17. And obviously I've had to renew it because we've absolutely been slammed today with all the fears of the tariffs and the rhetoric that was used. I think there was an opportunity today where things could have been a bit easier. I don't think he needed to be as vast and as wide, over 100 tariffs. I don't think it needed to be so severe, but it was. And obviously markets have reacted extremely badly over it. So we need to be mindful that this is we are now in extreme fear. Single digits hasn't been like this for quite some time, for well over a year or two. But again, wherever we're in extreme fear, there are hunting opportunities to go out there and pick some good targets, pick up some bargains, real good opportunity to DCA dollar cost average into some trades. So the weekly stocks heat map, obviously a lot across the board is down. Not everything, but a hell of a lot. And again, I had to redo this one today. Originally took the slide from yesterday's, and it's all just got a lot worse. Amazon down 11%, Apple down 8%, Nvidia down almost 8%, Google 8%. The tech sector has been absolutely walloped over the last week or two. Losing billions and billions altogether. Crypto fear and greed again ticking down. When I took this original slide yesterday to do the video today, it was up at 27. It's now down to 24. Sorry, actually it was 29 yesterday, so it's dropped back down a bit more. We can see here last week it was at 33. Last month it was at 39. So again, we are getting down on the the more fearful side, which again presents more opportunities for those that have the opportunity to DCA in or to pick up some bargains. Weekly crypto heat map. So we can see Bitcoin's down almost 6%, Ethereum down 11%, XRP down 12%. BNB, Binance 5%. Again, Solana getting smacked as well, big time. Everything is just down. We are obviously well and truly out of the alt season. Could there be another push if the Bitcoin does bump up again come later this year? We will see. So we can see here that the VIX is starting to spike up again. So the volatility index. We can see that the 50-day moving average is starting to slowly curl up as well. If we look back to July, a huge spike. Then if we look to around November time, another spike. And then in March, there was another spike. The three previous spikes, the first two spikes had all subsided within a week. The one back in March took a little bit longer, maybe a couple of weeks. So we can see that we're back up above the March and November spike, but we're still quite a way off from what the previous July September time spike was. So again, extreme fear. Just to be mindful of it. If you want to be picking up some bargains, you can, but just really pick your time for when you want to be doing that. So another one here, we can see the S&P seasonality. We want to be looking at the peak times for when we want to start, moving monies into the S&P, things like that. So we can see here that Jan and Feb tend to be up months. Middle of Feb down to early April are pretty much down months with regards to the seasonality side of things. That could be a number of reasons. It could be, the most likely one is going to be the people are taking profits. to cover off tax bills, liabilities and whatnot. And then normally what would happen is from early April all the way up to, say, mid to late June, you would see a nice increase again. With the Trump tariffs, that's all up in the air at the moment. So it's going to be, my gut feeling is going to be short-term turmoil, maybe another couple of weeks. He's saying that the reciprocal tariffs are going to be going live and going on the 9th of April, I believe. So they've still got another week's worth of trying to cut some deals and whatnot, but it does look like a blanket 10% across everyone, and then obviously those specific countries that he wants to add additional taxes to, tariffs rather, are gonna go live in a week. So watch this space. But again, short-term turmoil. But once it calms down and once it settles, I think we're going to see one hell of a blast up. Okay, so the US M2 money supply and why it matters. So we can see that over the years, the M2 money supply has been ticking up. And this is basically US liquidity. So the money printer, what they've been doing over the long term is obviously quite a steady increase. And then obviously during COVID 2020, just as every major economy around the world had to do, pump hit the money printer, pump the liquidity and quantity Vs. So that went up, that spiked up, and you can see around mid 2022, 23, it then tailed off, and they went into what's known as quantitative tightening, and it's been like that for quite a while now. It has slowly started to pick up again, come the start of 2024, mid 2024, and it's currently sitting at 21.6 trillion. But I believe that is going to be, well, they've got obviously a hell of a lot of debt that they need to refinance. I think it's around between 7 and 9 trillion they need to refinance this year. So I think the Trump plan is obviously to, cause some short-term pain, lower the dollar, bring interest rates down. With lower dollar means that their manufacturing prices to purchase, obviously, for external countries to purchase their products, if they've got a lower dollar, is going to be a lot more, lot more appetite out there if the American products are cheaper because the dollar's down. And also, if they're going to be bringing down their interest rates, dropping in interest rates, that's going to help boost the markets. It also means that they're going to be able to refinance at a lower rate. So that's what my gut feeling is that they're going to be doing over the coming months. So M2 money supply, why does it matter? Basically, if we look at, there's two main theories here about the 77 and the 108 day offset. When the money printer goes off and when liquidity is pumped in, historically, the Bitcoin cycle has followed, whether it's be around 77 to 108 days, the Bitcoin price has followed. So we can see here, global M2 is on the rise. Okay, a few more slides a little bit later on to show you about who's doing what not globally. But if that is the case, then we should be looking at the Bitcoin price really starting to take off sometime end of April, early May. Now, it all depends. Again, if we're still going through this tariff turmoil, then that could put a halt on things. But regardless of what Trump's tariffs are doing, there are facts out there. China's in a bad economic state and has to print, has been printing, will continue to print more. Again, the US need to refinance a load of debt, so they don't really get a choice. They're going to have to. So yeah, let's watch this space. But a lot of the analysts out there are saying that early May should be a good one for the crypto run. So again, global money supply rising. May could pump. A few days ago, China put 73 billion into its banks. So we know obviously that they're starting to hit the money printer, and that the 108-day delay means that roughly early May could be quite good for the Bitcoin prices and crypto as well and alike. So just talking of history, looking back from the 2020 cycle to this cycle, we can see that there was a huge drop-off, downward pressure. This time round, it's a lot more down to the market makers, where ETFs, things like that, hold so much Bitcoin. They now have a lot more pressure on hunting liquidity and things like that. So if you've got a perp trade, if you've got profit and stop loss levels. That's all visible on crypto. Obviously, we can all see it, blockchains and whatnot. Then basically, and if you're a big player, then people will hunt you down. And unfortunately, the likes of say Ibit and whatnot, they hold so many Bitcoin now that if they decide to sell off, and they all do it at similar times, and then buy back 6 hours later at around $10,000 per Bitcoin less, then they're going to be making a lot of money. But recently we've seen this downward pressure, and we can see here the 2025, 2020, very similar cycles. Is this now the kick on that we need in May? Fingers crossed. Michael Saylor, history is one thing, but 444k for a Bitcoin price is one hell of another thing. So obviously he's put this out there. There was a figure bounded around, of the 444 by the end of the year. I'd just be happy with 150, but if it goes to 4.4, then they call it the fourth turning. A lot needs to happen, and the fourth turning is basically that the belief in the fiat currency diminishes. So if enough people feel like the fiat currencies around the world are being debased beyond return, then people will find a safe haven, and that safe haven at the moment is massively gold. That's on a huge run, but once people start to realise that Bitcoin is the digital gold, and it's a much harder, scarcer asset, then obviously we think that will take off. So this slide we're going to look at is the Bitcoin CAGR, so compounded annual growth rate. And what I put on this one is basically, is momentum down or is the bull run overdue? So Bitcoin annual compounded growth rate has never been this low. Two possible options: one, bull is losing momentum as the asset grows, or two, we are nowhere near the top for this cycle. So what we're going to look at is, if we go back 4 years, previous cycle, we are barely over the highs of the previous cycle. Now, obviously, we did have a lot of action from the ETFs at the start of 2024, which really did cause like a 4 or 5 times X of the Bitcoin price, and that was quite early for the cycle. So what that's kind of done is I think this has kind of put a bit of a ripple effect on the cycle timeline. So we are probably quite a way out. Hence why, if the Bitcoin price does follow M2 money supply, we think in 12 weeks, if it does come into May, there isn't a guarantee. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in life, especially stocks and crypto. But it could be pushed out a bit further. So again, time will tell. This one, roughly around a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to include this because it's quite big. So historically, when Gary Gensler was head of the SEC, not only was everything just curtailed and absolutely destroyed crypto-wise, and try to, hold back as much as he could. Now we have a pro-crypto government, and the SEC is going into overdrive, that we're seeing roughly 45 notifications a month, whereas previously, under the previous regime, there was probably 2 or 3 notifications. So again, a lot's happening in the background. We've got some, a few more slides coming on, which will show us a bit more about the Trump sons, what they're doing, and how it's all an accumulative effect that will slowly gather momentum as we go later into the year. So again, leading into the cycle, that I don't believe the bull run's over at all. I think there's maybe a 5-10% chance that it could be, and that we might be in the bear, but I doubt it. And also, this bear, if we are in a bear, this cycle is nowhere near going to be the drawdowns of previous cycles. It's just too many big players in there now. MicroStrategy's next game plan is basically going to be able to buy up the next year and a half's Bitcoin supply. That's just one player. So if you think about the ETFs, if you think about America's strategic Bitcoin reserve also coming in, it's just, there isn't enough to go around, and that's my feeling. But there also could be a bit of game theory kicking in, what with other treasuries and other governments deciding to stack it. Looking, if America does initiate the SBR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, then other governments are going to follow suit. Once that starts to happen, game theory kicks off. If that does kick off, we are going to see, there's a good chance we are going to see a supply crunch with Bitcoin. Again, we'll look at some figures and whatnot, but that's the hope, that's the feeling, and anyone that's invested then will probably feel the same. So the reason for MSTR and why it's for me, there just isn't enough Bitcoin to go around. There is at the moment. If you wanted to buy the odd one or two, no problem. But obviously, when you've got the big players, ETFs, Michael Saylors of the world, chewing up 9,000 one week, 26,000 the other week, there's just not going to be enough long term, and that's why BlackRock's Larry Fink, if every millionaire in the US asked their financial advisor to get them one Bitcoin, there just wouldn't be enough. So the more people that clock onto it, and the more demand there is, obviously, you know what happens, supply demands, simple economics, it's going to push the price up. What happens when there is a supply crunch and you can't go getting your Bitcoin? There will be on-ramps to other Bitcoin-related assets and proxies like MSTR. MSTR is the cleanest proxy Bitcoin play out there. It's like a 2 times multiplier. Currently running a NAV premium of about 1.96, I believe, off the top of my head. The lowest it's been over the last 12 months is probably 1.4. Normally sits around about the 1.8 to 2, but anything over 2, that's quite a high premium, so you might want to think about taking some profits and whatnot. But as Larry Fink obviously mentioned there, that suddenly the on-ramp to MSTR might be people's only play to be involved with Bitcoin. So that's why I'm holding MSTR, and I have been for quite a while. And still still ever since inception of the strategy of holding Bitcoin, they have never sold any. So unlike the ETFs that will dump a lot of Bitcoin, crash the market, buy it back at $10,000 per Bitcoin less a week later, MSTR just doesn't do that. So the latest acquisition of just over 22,000 Bitcoin for 1.92 billion, bought an average Bitcoin price of 86,000. Means they're up to a yield of year-to-date yield of 11%, which is quite astounding, really. So their average acquisition price per Bitcoin is sitting at 67,458. So a very nice price indeed. Michael Saylor put this one out there. Barely affected during recent tariff turmoils. Again, not so good today. I think it's lost maybe 10 to 12% today. But basically, if you look at the other ones out there, your big companies such as Tesla, Nvidia, Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, the QQQ, obviously Nasdaq. There are some big losses out there, and then MSTR is just sitting at -4%. That was until today. That -4% is now around about -16%. So, but everything else has been hit even more. So again, in hard financial times and turmoil times, people will look to obviously put their finances into safer assets, gold, things like that, hard assets, and Bitcoin, MSTR could be one of them. This one here from James at Invest Answers: convert fear into Bitcoin holdings will create you a level of relevance within your businesses. So if you've got a dying company, let's just say you've got an archaic company that's just fizzling out, but you are sitting on a lot of cash, then one of the things you could do is you could allocate the cash to Bitcoin. So exactly what GameStop have done. They're sitting on 4.6 billion worth of cash, and they have just over the last week announced that 1.2 billion of that is going to be put into Bitcoin. So it could might just be one big purchase. It could be DCA'd over a number of weeks. We don't know, but basically by doing that, what it's done is it's allowed them to become relevant again, in the sense that rather than just sitting on a shitload of cash that is being debased and that is just slowly being whittled away, you might as well put it into something that's got a long-term span of 4-year cycles of, on average, 100% return per year on average up until now. Maybe things start to peter out a bit because obviously the size of the price of the actual asset. The bigger it is, the harder it is to move. But you've got other players out there like Intel, Boeing, all sitting on huge cash. If they just started allocating again, I know other companies that have allocated to Bitcoin because of the long-term plan. They're thinking, you know, you go back 6-7 weeks, there was a number of people talking about Bitcoin by 2020, by 2030, 2032 being $1 million a coin. All of a sudden, at the moment, the magical 83k Bitcoin price isn't so high. You know, okay, it would be much better if you'd gone back a year ago when it was 15,000, but you can't turn back the time. So yeah, that's that one. Quite interesting. Huge for crypto space. So the FDCI says that banks can now engage in crypto activities without prior approval. This one slipped under the radar a little bit. Big shout out to Mighty Party for bringing this one up in James at Invest Answers DCA video last week. Basically, now that the banks, the leashes are off, banks can do what they want. They can hold your Bitcoin. You know, they can advise you on purchasing Bitcoin, not just Bitcoin, but crypto in general. So, you know, we've never had this before. I think this is going to be absolutely massive, and it's going to open up a lot more avenues and doors where we didn't previously have them. This one here from Mara, they're starting to adopt the MSTR strategy playbook. So what Marathon Digital, basically, what they've been doing, they are you know, primarily a Bitcoin miner. And, you know, you go back 3 or 4 months, the price was roughly $20 per share. I think it's sitting around about $11 to $12 now. But what they're doing is they've just decided to ATM a plan for $2 billion to raise funds for Bitcoin. So they'll take their holdings up to 75,000 Bitcoins. The reason they're quite a unique player, and again, I'll show you a slide in a little bit that's thanks to James at Invest Answers. What he does is he breaks down and he shows the dollar price per Bitcoin if you were to invest into certain companies that hold Bitcoin, not just Bitcoin miners, but also people that hodl Bitcoin, such like MSTR. He's also got on their Tesla as well, because obviously, you know, 4 or 5 years ago they bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin. But what this means is that Marathon have got like a double whammy effect. So not only are they mining Bitcoin, so they're actually generating Bitcoin as well, they are now buying shitloads of Bitcoin as well to really stack their bags. Don't get me wrong, there is only one MSTR. There will only ever be one MSTR. They started doing this 4 years ago. They now hold just under 530,000 Bitcoin. No one comes near to them. You know, there will not be another MSTR. You know, but Marathon are doing their best to have a go. So this one the other day, 700 billion worth of tariff revenue. So 600 billion on reciprocal tariffs, plus 100 billion on auto tariffs. There was talk about where's this money going to go, and could this be the kickoff to the strategic Bitcoin reserve for the US Treasury? Again, if it is, it's all positive news for the crypto community. It's only going to drive the price up. But again, we'll see. Another bit of big news for the crypto space. We mentioned about it earlier, alluded to it slightly, but the Trump brothers. So Hut 18 are up for a new Bitcoin mining venture. I think they've called it American mining. So again, the more exposure, the more people that come into the space, Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin related assets, things like that. It's only going to go one way. They wouldn't be going into this if they didn't see big things on the horizon. That's the basis. That's what I think. We've got one here, Sol killing ETH again. Basically, I've always said, you know, it's known out there that Sol is the ETH killer. He does everything better, faster, cheaper, with a lot more people following it. You know, it's basically Solana News here have brought in something, and they're basically saying that Franklin Templeton, huge, currently have 1.5 trillion in assets under management, AUM, says that Solana DeFi challenges Ethereum's dominance while trading at lower valuation multiples. Basically, it does a hell of a lot more for a hell of a lot less. So it's an absolute bargain still. If you were looking at a crypto compendium, for example, it just beats Ethereum on absolutely everything. The devs, the daily active users, the dApps. There isn't one metric it loses to Ethereum on. Hence why it has been eating the market cap of the dominance against Ethereum. So good for Solana. So ETFs on the horizon plus M2. What could that mean? So obviously tweet this one back. There are now 7 Sol ETFs registered. Where do you see that affecting the Sol price? It's been absolutely battered over the last couple of months. So it was up at I think the high was 260 something, and we're now down at around about $115. So it has been absolutely destroyed. I know quite a few people that are starting to get back into larger Sol positions. They see it as hugely oversold. So again, it could be good value. But again, with the Sol ETFs, 7 ETFs on the horizon, plus M2 Global money printing about to kick off, it could be a real good earner on that one. Okay, so Bitcoin, short-term holders, long-term holders dynamics. Wanted to show this one because I think it's important to look at what is the short-term holders average price. Now I use this as a method of DCAing myself. So we are in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment with Bitcoin, and it has, we got up to the high of 109,000, I think it was 108, 109,000. Since then it's dropped back down, and we're now sitting at the lows of say 70s, 8,000 I think a couple of weeks back was the lowest, and then it's been getting up to like top 80s, and then dropping back down to 83, and then back up to top 80s, back down to 83. So why is this relevant? So short-term holders, anyone with Bitcoin that's purchased within 150 days will class as short-term holders. 151 days plus, they'll go into the long-term holder category. So for myself, what I've been doing, again, not financial advice, NFA, is whenever it drops back down to roughly 83k, that's when I might just have a little nibble, a bit more. And if you want to play the game and then obviously sell out a little bit, if you could do it tax-free, that's brilliant. If you're using the MSTR play for tax-free purposes in the UK, even better, because it's obviously a 2-time leveraged on the price. So buying at 83, sell out roughly about 89. Wait, literally can be, last night, 8:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. it dropped $6,000 in 3 hours. It's that volatile. It can give you that return. It can give you that offer and that option. So good fun, but again, just make sure you're doing your homework. So could March turn out to be turn positive and setting up for April? So this one, thanks very much to James at Invest Answers. Nicked his chart here. Shows obviously what he's been tracking month on month returns of Bitcoin. What were good months? What were bad and down months? And yeah, this historically February, March February's normally been quite good, but historically March has been a bit meh. And February was awful, March was down, January was okay. I think April will turn okay in the end, but I think we're going to again see short-term turmoil for the next couple of weeks. But this is one I'm gonna try and show again, every few weeks, because I think it's important. I think it's a good one to have. So 5 outflow weeks. Are we turning a corner? I think we were up until today, but possibly we'll see. So go back over the last 6 weeks. 5 of them were all negative outflows from ETFs. So remember what I was saying about when ETFs are dumping, it's just going to destroy them and rip the price down. And then we had 1 up week, literally last week, which was really, really good. It's good to see a turnaround. Will that continue? I think we're going to struggle. I think there's too much pressure. We've seen huge amounts of stock, billions and billions of stocks wiped out of the S&P 500, mainly the top Mag 7, sorry. But you never know. Let's see. We know that obviously Bitcoin being a big store of value, people call it the digital gold. It hasn't been affected as bad as the stock market, but obviously it's still not going to be gains, that's for sure. NAV premiums and Bitcoin NAV premiums and Bitcoin price per dollar invested chart. This is the one I was alluding to earlier. And when I show you my portfolio, we have had a bit of a change around in the last few weeks, purely because obviously what with the altcoins being absolutely destroyed, I wanted to get out before they really sunk. But the main one for me is I've entered a nice option play with Mara, and you can see here why I've done that. For me, on the left hand side you see the ticker, so you've got the company on the left hand side. As you move over, you can see the Bitcoin shares and the Bitcoin that are currently held. So you've got MicroStrategy down there. Obviously this is a week or two out of date, so you can see the MicroStrategy sitting over 500,000 Bitcoin, and their NAV premium is currently 1.93. I think actually up to date it's like 1.97. But basically, Bitcoin per dollar invested is basically 52 for MSTR as an example. Okay, so why I've entered a nice option play with Mara was their option calls have been beaten up quite a lot recently. So I've jumped in there, and you can see that the NAV premium for Mara is 1.16. So for every dollar you're invested, you're getting 86 cent of that dollar on Bitcoin. So you're almost getting, by buying Mara, you're almost getting Mara's underlying asset of 47,000 or whatever it is Bitcoin, and then you get the mining company for free, almost, for like 14 cents out of every dollar, which is a huge amount of value. Now, we all know that Bitcoin miners are incredibly volatile. So again, do your research. Don't just go diving into things like that, especially with option plays as well. So Bitcoin miners, volatile. Option plays on Bitcoin miners, extremely volatile. But time it right, and if they go to where I'm hoping they'll go and where I think they're going to go, can be extremely profitable. But time will tell. Allocations. So we've wiped out about 4 or 5 allocations. We are back to being quite heavily MSTR. Still got a little bit of a soul perp going on. Holding roughly 9% Neptune Digital. Again, use Neptune Digital because they hold Solana, they hold Bitcoin, and they also hold they've got a bit of a play on SpaceX as well. So that's my proxy SpaceX play. Actual Sol holdings 18%. Then Tesla 2%, ArcG 2%. Again, options on ArcG are long term, so they're out till 2026, June 26th, I think, maybe something like that. So long time to play for them. They're only a small amount, but something that Jesse at Micro to Macro believes in. And looking into it, I can see why he's done it. So I've followed suit on that one. What my goals are always going to be different to your goals, okay? Always have your own game plans. Always think about your own theories. Do your own homework. But for me, whilst the Bitcoin price is not much over the price that it was when President Trump was inaugurated, and it's not that much over what last term cycles was, I think at the moment that price, anything Bitcoin related, is extremely good value. So hence why I'm heavily into MSTR again. And as, fingers crossed, as the price starts to appreciate and it starts to go into the 120s, up to the 150s, potentially, fingers crossed, hopefully, then that's when I'm going to start rotating out, moving more into Tesla calls and options further down the line. As long as it hasn't gone to the moon already, because we know that Tesla have got a lot of good stuff on the horizon. Again, the next video I'm going to do will be a bit more heavily into Tesla to show you why I'm thinking Tesla long term. Just a couple of bits and pieces off the top of my head about that. Obviously, they've got the Optimus robots, huge play. So they've got 5,000 robots being made. Was it this year? Or was it? Yeah, 5,000 robots being made this year. They're going to predominantly use most of those robots to then create 50,000 robots for next year, and the year after that 500,000. So 500,000 robots within 2 years. Yeah, that's massive. They've got the revamp of the Model Y. They shut down production in January across 3 of their main gigafactories to tool up to be able to create the new Model Y. So that's why they missed their earnings call yesterday. A lot of positive things. The mega packs, Shanghai gigafactories about to go online. But yeah, so for me, just want to keep the Tesla price down if you don't mind. MSTR go to the moon, rotate out in Tesla, and then Tesla take off again. That's the game plan. It's always good to have a plan. Who knows? It's just fingers crossed if it happens. But that's it for this week. Very short video. Thanks very much for watching. Again, sorry for not being around for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been a bit crazy. Haven't had much time. Been a bit unwell as well. In a lot of sickness and bugs in the house. But yeah, speak to you soon. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.